right. और हम भी अगर बच्चे होते हम भी अगर मोटे बच्चे होते नाम हमारा बबलू बबलू. What's up, everybody? We're back on episode 6 of Mind Over Music, season 2, with my 3 amazing, beautiful, and brilliant guests. I want everybody to welcome you guys. Thank you guys so much for being on the show tonight. We're going to start off with Sofia Poonawala Manjee. Sofia, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. She is a nurse practitioner. She is the mother of DHD films in her time off, and she sometimes has to deal with some poop in the tub whenever whenever Maz is not being a good boy. We're going to remember this. Maz is going to see this episode in like 40 years. And he's going to be like, man, I pooped in the tub one time when I was 2 years old. So, Sophia, thank you so much for being on the show with us tonight.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. We're going to be talking all about childhood nutrition. We actually wanted to name it childhood obesity first, and then we decided to get politically correct with it. And so now we're going to do childhood nutrition. Our next guest is also a nurse practitioner. She's brilliant. She just launched her own company called Vital Telehealthcare. And Rashmi Momin, thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. This is going to be great.
Yes. Well, I'm excited as well. And then we have a doctor in the house. She's our personal Doogie Howser. She decided to wear some makeup today and look super pretty for us. She's a hospitalist, and she's one of the funniest people that I know in the world. She's hilarious. Dr. Rahana Sunesara, thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
All right, Baylor reunion.
Baylor reunion, yes. So we all know each other from our days at Baylor, and we had a lot of fun in those times. It was a lot of kosher fun. It wasn't like, what these kids do today, in their badmashiness. We actually had a lot of good fun, clean fun, and we actually would go to, our religious prayers all the time, and we were all like, we were achhe bache, hum bhi agar achhe bache. So we're gonna get right into it tonight. So how's everybody doing? Give me some and some energy, and let me know how everyone's doing.
We're doing great.
Excellent.
Good. So it's so funny, as we were preparing for this show, the girls, had gotten together on WhatsApp, and I never check my WhatsApp. And so, because I get 500,000 messages from family members and random groups of just lots of random media that I don't really care to see. So they were trying to get in touch with me, but they met and they put together this awesome PowerPoint presentation. So let's pull that up. Let's get the PowerPoint up. We went through who's going to be presenting what and all that stuff. So there was a lot of thought and a lot of time that went into this show. So we're going to also post a link where all of our references and resources are also titled out, and then possibly also the presentation itself. But I will leave that to Rashmi and Rahana, whatever you guys want to do and however you guys want to figure that out logistically. So let's get into it.
Right. So hi, I'm Dr. Rahana Sunesara, just so you know my voice if you're on the radio. So why are we doing this? The childhood obesity, obviously, it's an epidemic, and I'm an adult doctor, an internist. So why do I care about kids? Because I see the consequences. I admit people with strokes and heart attacks and diabetes and dialysis issues where only one thing is the bottom issue is obesity and diet. Not only, I would say, it would be genetics too, but most of the issues I would imagine that we can possibly control. I think at least 70% we are in control. So let's just, roll it back and see where all this begins. Childhood obesity is where it begins. The habits that we form with our own children is how they end up as adults, right? So what's going on with these kids? Well, in the United States, compared to Asian countries, we are just skyrocketing in the obesity department, and 20% of adolescents are obese, and even up above like 25% as they get older, and then adults maybe 30 to 35%. And certain populations, right, Ali, it just seems that our Asian folks are more inclined to become obese because how our lives used to be. We used to be farmers, laborers, and all of a sudden we come to the Western world and we're sitting at desks all day, And then we're still eating 3 rotis a day because we just got to have our rotis, right? You know, like I'm just not full yet because I didn't get my roti and rice. But we didn't realize that we had stopped the physical part of it. And then we end up becoming more and more heavy. And then the Hispanics have the same story. Latinos are being affected right and left. No, it's true. And so it's becoming very obvious where we kind of have to change. And yes, genetics is one big thing, but Asians and Hispanics are being affected mostly, but then African Americans, and just the American diet is becoming more and more worldwide. So this epidemic is not only in the United States, right? So the adult prevalence of self-reported obesity, we're looking at adults and how they report, but that's fine.
I think that, when you look across the United States, so let's go one slide back if we can. Yeah, so let's look, and this is something that's really important, right? I think you brought up a really important point. And really going back to you not only being a healthcare professional, but all 3 of you guys are extremely passionate about this stuff because you're seeing childhood obesity and you guys are mothers. And so you're making these healthcare decisions and you're making these feeding decisions, right? On a moment-to-moment basis, on a meal-to-meal basis. And so, the way that we look at public health, the way that we look at, disease management and disease prevalence, all that stems from, number one is the American diet, but 2 is a lack of education of what's really happening in the background. So that's really what I'm excited about, helping you guys present and kind of get out into the world here. And so, we have this map of the United States up, and we talked about certain regions around the United States and lifestyle that's associated with those regions. So why don't we get into this map here of the adult prevalence of self-reported obesity?
Right. So like we said, that adults, and if your parents are obese, then you're more likely to be obese as a child. So let's look at this map. It seems that, the southern states are a little bit more obese, 30 to 35%. Look at our own state of Texas. And then if you look towards Louisiana and then Tennessee and Kentucky, where a little bit, the socioeconomic status is a lot different than California. So, being poor puts you at risk of being obese because of food deserts, where the proper food, vegetables, fresh food is not available. If you go to the HEB on 288 in the third ward or so forth, you will not find the variety that you would get in Sugarland or somewhere where it's a little bit better socioeconomic status. It's just the way it is. It's called a food desert. There's a reason. They just don't have things available. It's all packaged, and Little Debbie cookies or so forth is the staple for a snack. And so you could see that in this map. And then obviously, it seems Colorado has something, the hiking, I guess, I don't know. They're the best in terms of their obesity levels.
Well, they're high kings, right? So they know what's up. You look at this map, right, and you see that all the southern states are highly in red. You also attribute that to population healthcare. You look at the education of that population as well, right? Out in the West and the Northeast, in New York and Vermont and Connecticut, where some of our highest education institutions are based as well. You have lower levels of obesity. And so I think, on one side you have public knowledge, public health, kind of tied together. And then you also have socioeconomics that are tied to it as well. So, you look at like the richest states, right? California's bankrupt, but, and it's on fire. But, you look at the companies that are there and the talent that has to, move into that state in order to, sustain their careers and things of that sort.
Right. Even like if you have a high school degree and only a high school degree, you're more at risk for obesity just because your education level is not there. Perhaps it's just the amount of, I guess, it's just the way it is. It becomes like this vicious cycle. You're not educated and you get sick and it just gets worse and worse. And it's more and more, it just correlates, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And you know, when we look at childhood obesity as it relates to disease states, right? It seems like, as this slide is alluding to, childhood obesity itself is almost like the gateway to every single disease state. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Right. So, like I said, I see this as the endpoint of obesity in the hospital, right? I see adults coming with type 2 diabetes. Why? Because they were obese. And it wasn't only their genetic issue, it's because of poor diet. And then what happens from diabetes? You get your eyesight goes, your kidneys go, you're on dialysis, you have a stroke and heart attack. That's all just from diabetes, all rooted in obesity. Then you get high cholesterol. You know, dyslipidemia is just a fancy word for high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and fat in your blood, right? And so that obviously puts you at risk for strokes and heart attack because of the atherosclerosis and the blockage of the vessels, because all that junk gets stuck in your vessels, right? So, and then obesity itself, well, what is it? It's just plain fat under your skin. It's just the fat cells are just piling on because there's so much storage because you just ate too much. So the body doesn't know what to do. It stores it in fat cells. But these fat cells are not stagnant. They do stuff. They make hormones. So then the hormone levels go up. You're at cancer risk. Estrogen goes up. Breast cancer. All different cancers just start popping up, and colon cancer is associated with obesity. Mood disorders, we talked about mental health, right, Ali? Depression, and that is kind of like chicken versus the egg. Okay, you were obese, then you got depressed, or you got depressed and then you ate too much and then you became obese. It just becomes a cycle, right? And then we already talked about heart disease. Who has one of the most highest rates of heart disease in the world? South Asians. Okay, and then how do you tell the diabetes and the risk and the heart disease? The level of your pot belly, you know, your waist circumference. Okay, as your belly grows because of your issue with diet and so forth, it just is directly correlated with the metabolic syndrome is what they call it. Okay. Now, reproductive disorders, right? As a mom, as a woman, I know a lot of women are issues with PCOS, where you have problems with infertility. Again,
and please tell everybody what PCOS is.
Polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's just again, hormonal levels, and then once people start losing weight, the insulin resistant, your body just starts to respond to insulin better. And all of a sudden you lose 20 pounds and then you are able to get pregnant, and which people couldn't. And they don't even have to do anything. You just exercise and watch your diet, lose a little bit of weight, and people are able to conceive and live. So then we go on to what happens after a while of being obese for a while, and you continue to have high fat cells and triglycerides and hormonal issues, liver disease.
Well, I also think that it's glycogen storage, right? I mean, the amount of, it's not just fats that we're eating, right? We went through this whole thing historically where we thought fats were really, really bad for you. And so sugars were, you know, the food industry started putting so much sugar into everything. And so we're actually consuming a bunch of sugar, right? And that sugar is sitting on our liver as glycogen, right? And it's storing on our liver as glycogen. And perpetually doing that over and over and over again creates this liver disease, right?
Right. And so you get the same liver cirrhosis, same scarring as if you drank alcohol. So it's NASH, okay? It's non-alcoholic steatohepatosis, which is a fancy word for fatty liver disease.
Fatty liver disease.
And women, you know, women who never touched alcohol, men who never touched alcohol throughout their life end up being on transplant list because of fatty liver disease. Again, it's not all associated with just diet. Yes, your genetics are at play, but there are some things you can do. And then the most prevalent of the diseases is hypertension, the silent killer, what they call, right? Where your blood pressure just goes up and up and up because of a variety of factors, salt, but the obesity, the weight, is directly correlated. You lose 10 pounds, your blood pressure will go down, and people are able to get off some medicine. So not everything requires medicine. And all of these require medicines, the things I talked about. But doctors are not pushing medicine, right, Radhi? You wouldn't
I totally agree. And I think a lot of this has started with this knowledge desert, right? It's we have food deserts across the United States, but in our minds we have knowledge deserts, right? Let's start getting into understanding nutrition labels, right? And what's important and what's not, because there's so much information that's out there. Everyone is, there's a new fad diet coming out all the time, right? There's the Miami Beach, the South Beach diet, or the paleo diet or paleo. There's the Atkins diet and things of that sort. So let's get into reading nutrition labels a little bit. What's important and what's not?
Right. So nutrition labels are very simple to read, but you just have to be conscious. The whole point of this if there's anything you can take home, would be look at all the foods consciously. The nutrition labels are quite obvious. So let's look at the servings. First, we look at servings per container. So let's say we have a bag of chips and they're 200 calories per serving. You're like, okay, not bad for a snack, 200 calories, I can take that. But you forgot on your Cheetos, you had 3.5 servings. So 200 times 3.5, you're looking at a pretty high
substantial amount
intake. That's a meal right there, right?
Yeah.
And so you're just snacking away in front of the TV and you just ate 700 calories of Cheetos, right? So you have to multiply your serving size. Then you look at your fat and how many grams. And for kids, honestly, that part is not as important as, okay, you can kind of tell, I mean, what is healthy and what's not healthy. I would think on a nutrition label for a child, the most important thing is sugars, total sugar, added sugars as well. Okay, total sugars, added sugars, and then fiber intake. Right?
Definitely.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So this is yeah. So we're talking about reading nutrition labels, and then like how food is kind of presented to us in grocery stores. Certain things like Nutella, right? Nutella is like probably my favorite breakfast of all time if I could choose a candy bar for breakfast. But the way that products are marketed to us is very different. We have to be able to discern them. So not only reading the nutrition facts, comparing how much fiber there is versus how much sugar there is, right? And there's such an important correlation that I want you to talk about here after we talk about the nutritional mirage. Talk to us a little bit about Nutella specifically, or certain products that are in the breakfast aisle, but is not really nutritious and it's not really helping us get our day started in the right way.
Right. So it's all about marketing, right? Ali, anything you can market and you think it's the healthiest thing, but Nutella is just an example. Hazelnuts, oh yes, a little bit of dark chocolate cocoa, and it sounds great. It sounds like, okay, my kid likes it. Oh yes, that's all we want. Moms, we're like, God, he's gonna eat it today. Yes, and you're just like, okay, perfect. This is one thing he'll eat. But then you start kind of understanding what's going on with the nutrition facts. Okay, you got 2 tablespoons. And in that, you have 200 calories, right? And fine, the kid needs fat. Okay, it's all right. Fat calories are half. Okay, fine. The kid's not, gaining weight. All right, I can deal with that. But sugars, 21 grams of sugar in one serving. Okay, there's 40 grams or 35 in Sprite and Coke, respectively. So you're giving half a Coke in the morning. Okay,
The first is sugar.
Yeah, it's sugar. You're giving
Sugar.
half a Coke bottle, right? And I mean, and then look at your ingredients. The ingredients are labeled and listed in, descending order of how much they have been put into your product. So whatever's first, that's the most that's in this product, the ingredients.
Right. So the way that, yeah, and that's really important for all of us to learn, right? Whenever we're reading nutrition facts and you read the ingredients, if it's chicken nuggets and the first thing is not chicken, then that thing is not mostly chicken nuggets, right? So in Nutella, we know that it's a chocolate hazelnut spread, but here the first ingredient that's labeled on Nutella is sugar, and the second is palm oil, which is insane.
And just to give everybody an idea, like that 22 grams of sugar, that's like 4 of those sugar packets that we put in our coffee that we can find at Starbucks. It's like taking each one and piling it on a piece of bread. And that's just to give you a visual of what that really is. So that's a ton of sugar.
And that piece of bread is another 2 packets of sugar. So it's like having 6 packets of sugar in one go.
And there's no fiber in this, okay? So fiber is your brake for your body to flatten the curve of your glucose spike, of your sugar spike in your blood. So if you eat only glucose, your sugar will spike in your blood fairly quickly. But let's say you have your sugar with some fibrous other product like celery or some fruit that comes in its natural form, your sugar will spike slowly. It will be a little bit of flat curve, and it will stay longer because it takes a little bit more time for your body to break it down.
Yes, digest. Let's go to the next slide. I don't know why we're not proactively going to the next slide. I'm like writing messages. I'm like, hey guys, let's go to the next slide. And then we just keep going. Okay, anyway, so please everyone read the chats and know when we're going to the next slide. So this is also really important, right? So similar to Nutella, Nutella is a very easy target, right? Because what is chocolate doing in the breakfast section? That should be an automatic alarm in everyone's minds, right? To say, why am I seeing this here? How can it be nutritional? But maybe it is, right? There's other products that look really healthy, but are actually not very healthy at all. So how do we read those nutritional facts, Rahana? Dr. Sunesara?
Yes. So again, it's a talent. You can get an eye of finding the hidden sugars. Like I said, it's all marketing. They want to just sell their product. They don't care. And the sugar is the cocaine, I would think, for your tongue, for your brain. And they like it, but they don't want to tell you. So they put it in everything: salad dressing, crackers, peanut butter. Hi, sorry, I've been doing that to the camera a lot. And then ketchup. My kid only eats ketchup with their chicken nuggets, and then I can't tell. At some points, it's ketchup with nuggets or nuggets with ketchup. It just depends, like literally. And so I'm like, okay, this is not healthy, Elon. But he just asked right now, I want ketchup. He's having ketchup. Okay, fine. I'm like, this is not healthy. Why? Because there's sugar in it. A lot? Yes, a lot. And then he moves on. I don't know what he did with that ketchup. I'm sure he licked off the plate, but at least I taught him, okay? Yeah. Then the spaghetti sauce. Now, this was eye-opening, okay? Did you know Ragu, when they first made their amazing spaghetti sauce, they're like, ooh, this is the perfect recipe. Then they're like, oh, what are we gonna name it? Oh, Ragu. Why should we name it Ragus? Well, they're guys like, oh, we flipped sugar because that was our secret ingredient. Why not? The
ingredient was sugar, so it was RAGU, and backwards is SUGAR, UGAR, right? Yep. So it's Ragu backwards.
Right. So it was just something I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty bad because the kids don't know. The parents are like, oh man, he's eating it perfect. It has vegetables in it, lovely. You have to think. So, and then another thing, beverages. Gatorade seems so innocent. Ali, whenever it's sport drink, let's just drink it, whatever. And lemonade, oh my goodness, lemonade is like, to me, it's just equivalent to a soda. I wouldn't it's just carbon minus the carbonation, right? And then juice, even natural juices. If you have like 10 oranges in one glass, that's 10 oranges. And so you lose the fiber, you lose so much, even though it's natural and it was there. Your child would just be on a glucose high, even though it's fructose, it's still turned into glucose. Right? Avoid drinking your calories. That goes for adults too. Ali, if anybody needs weight loss advice, stop all your beverages. Drink plain water. You will survive.
I would say that about kids too. Like a lot of times parents will be like, well, my kid plays soccer or this or that, and they're sweating a lot. And, I just want to replace electrolytes. You don't need Gatorade to replace electrolytes. Just plain water is going to hydrate your child just fine. So no need for Gatorade
Because they're eating, yeah, they're eating fine. If it's been a really hard, pretty tough, rigorous game, and fine, I would still dilute that Gatorade. I would half it.
Oh,
I think
really?
it's when they're sick, like for example, when they're having like, an upset stomach, or if they're having diarrhea, vomiting, whatever it is that, they're having, some parents like to give Gatorade, not realizing that that's actually not good for them. And that's not good for their hydration when they actually need more electrolytes. That's not really replacing what they're losing. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
The
Yeah, I mean,
sugar
we look at-
in the sports drinks kind of, it just defeats the whole purpose, because that sugar is going to make the diarrhea keep going, and then you're just losing.
Oh, yeah, it's just a more vicious cycle then.
Just, you need something with electrolytes, but not the sugar.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Let's keep going. Next slide. Yeah, and so real quick, as we end that last slide, we saw that it was a naked juice product, right? And it was called Green Machine, and it had 53 grams of sugar in it. And it's presented in a way where it's like, oh, I have all these fruits and all these vegetables, blended together in this amazing little product, and it's going to get me, to
And
become
organic,
healthier.
and it must be good.
And just the name, simply the name, naked, means not with anything added to it. Just that name itself makes you think, oh, it must be good for me.
But 53 grams of sugar?
Like it has this many apples and this much broccoli and this much. So if you add that up, I don't think anyone could physically eat that much in one sitting, but you can definitely take all that juice down in minutes, no problem. And it says, look, no added sugar, but all the natural sugar from all those fruits and stuff are in there. So
yeah.
A lot
and that's the thing, is like you're talking about 270 calories, and when we look at raw vegetables, right, 270 calories is a lot, right? I mean, you're right, Sophia, you're talking about like bowls and bowls of salads, right? That you can get condensed in a small little 15-ounce drink.
And then look at the fiber. Like if fruit and vegetables are known to give you fiber, this one has 0 grams.
0 grams of fiber. Yeah, and that's because they take out all the.
How's that
because
even?
they juice it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even real. It's not even a real product, right? I mean, it's not even real. You're not getting the benefits of what you would
your
get.
sugar would skyrocket in your blood with this. Like it's just, and then that's how they get that sugar high. I mean, I made the mistake as a mom. Like I would at the beginning when I wasn't really understanding, or like, oh, the kid's not eating, so I would give him little pancakes with a little maple syrup, and the teacher's like, oh, he's a little hyper. Okay, what is he eating? And then I analyze. I'm like, oh my goodness. So just analyzing and consciously looking at what's happening.
Yeah.
So what should you eat, right? I think that's what's really important. Rahana, you did such a great job in like kind of addressing and talking about the nutrition labels, educating ourselves as consumers, as well as like people who are in charge of our family's health, right? Rashmi, I want to come to you. What should we eat? And let's kind of transition that.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, just to touch on that marketing piece also, it's the fact that, there's $4.6 billion that are spent every year just on child marketing for foods only. And that's only on children. So any ads that you see, they're spending big bucks trying to get you to buy the foods that you should eat. So what should you eat? And how can you kind of filter out all of this nonsense that you're getting fed through these different companies? And there's 4 rules of thumb that I like to follow. And the first one is you eat what you see. Okay, so always try to shop the perimeter of the grocery store. And most of the time, those are the things that you can eat more readily. So fresh fruits and vegetables, and then you go to the dairy aisle, you can buy your eggs along that side. The yogurts are typically in the perimeter. It's the aisles that you really sort of get lost in. And that's where you need to filter out that noise that's been created by these companies. And with the Federal Trade Commission, they have very little regulation on what is okay and what is not. Sure, there are consequences for false advertisement or misleading advertisement, but it actually comes down to the consumer us as parents to really decide what is good and what is not good. So again, eat the foods that are, that nature intended you to eat the way they are. Shop the perimeter of your grocery store. And then as South Asians, spices, that's huge for us. The power of spices. Spices are like, I have 4 favorite spices that I think really add a lot of value to not just adults, but especially children. First one is cinnamon. I think cinnamon really brings a lot to the table in terms of giving you that natural sweetness. You can put it in things like oatmeal, or if you're giving pancakes here and there, you can add it in that, or you can do it in smoothies, or your haldi wala drink that you may make for your baby. But it's very good. It adds a mild sweetness, and it's good for blood pressure, and it helps with the heart health. Another one is turmeric, haldi. It is so good for you because we all know it has lots of anti-inflammatory properties, and it really does help. Like, I remember, hearing stories from my grandmother and even my mother-in-law, like, if something happened, broken bone, they would put like haldi ka lek, and try to heal that. And it really does have a lot of good anti-inflammatory properties. So that's another one. And then another one is ginger. So ginger has a lot of properties to help with digestive cleansing. So if you think about, nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea, this ginger, eating a little bit of ginger and adding that into the kids' diet, it actually helps keep their digestive system pretty clean. And then the last one is garlic. Garlic really helps keep blood pressure low, and it helps keep your arteries really flexible because it keeps your blood flowing really well. So that's another really good one. And all of these spices, think about the last time you used them when you were cooking South Asian food. Pretty much every
meal.
time, every meal. So yeah. I think our diet in terms of South Asians, it can be very good. It's just how we prepare it and how much we cook the foods and how we make it is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, the kiddos get picky with South Asian food, so we have to try and try and try.
And you start early. I think that's the key. The mistake I made with my older one is I sort of sheltered him thinking, oh, it's maybe not that good for him to try. But boy, by my second one that I learned, from the minute that she could eat whatever, I try to give her anything and everything that she could tolerate. And she, is, sugar, and the older one is eating good, but that lesson learned, you feed them early and train them early in terms
and
of.
don't make assumptions that they won't like it.
Eat it. Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a good thing that I did with my son. The only thing I limited was the spice level, and even a little bit of spice, I let him have it so he could be used to it.
Right.
And that's he had everything, and that's been really good for us.
Right. And that's the tendency, like you think, except for salt, I think, spices should be tried pretty early on. And, of course, the cayenne pepper can have some benefits, but you want to, watch of course, you don't want to load them up because that can cause things like ulcers. But you want to watch that. But other than that, I think all spices, especially our South Asian spices, should be tried on young children. And then reach for healthy snacks. Like, my mother-in-law was really good. When I got married, this is something that I really picked up from her. She was very good about, she made it a ritual where after dinner, she'd cut a plate of fruit and put it out. And you had no choice but to eat it because you see everybody else around you that's like picking up a fruit and it's like making this delicious crunching sound. And you're like, let's maybe.
That sounds good. Yeah.
So you like totally get into that. And I noticed that when she wasn't around, I wasn't doing it. And our fruit consumption was actually lower. So that was one thing that I was like, well, I gotta
have it cut. Have it cut out of school. Just have it pre-cut. It's
pre-cut, present it. Yeah, like a variety of fruits there. And it really does make a difference when it's in your face instead of in the fridge.
Yeah, how do you guys think, this is just a random question, but how do you guys think that it affects you as an adult when you had pre-cut apples and oranges, and then when you grow up and I don't remember eating a bunch of apples and oranges in college with you guys, you know what I mean? It was because maybe it was too easy to eat whenever it would be presented on a plate from your
Right.
parents, and then you don't, because you were spoiled younger, right? How do you kind of like, reconcile that? And I have a follow-up question for Rashmi as well, but how do you guys as parents kind of reconcile that part of it? Or do you just say, hey, one day at a time?
Yeah, I think honestly, at this point, the kids are our responsibility in terms of nutrition. And then I think once they're in college, they do what they can. I think it's, you hope that you train them well and teach them healthy versus not healthy. I think at the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do when they're in college, right? So our goal is to teach them healthy eating habits and maybe transition out. Yeah, for sure. Thinking, okay, if they're in high school, they should eat their own fruits and and you should encourage that, definitely. But as young kids and moms of young kids, I think this is necessary for us to sort of put that in their brains and instill that, like, oh, did I have my 2 or 3, certain.
And the thing is, what I tell my kids, that's easier for them to understand. Hey, this is a snack and you need a snack. Okay, let's pick a snack. And they're like, oh, I want goldfish. I'm like, look, any packaged foods, we're not gonna do. Like, it's just unhealthy. Packaged foods is unhealthy. So I teach them that, hey, we should just get a apple or banana. Let's not get something that is packaged. And for them, that's more concrete. That's more tangible for their brains to understand. And to me, then you decrease the risk of something being processed. I mean, yeah, raisins are packaged, but they're good. But that's like few and far between. It's mostly all the processed foods that are packaged. So that it also helps the environment. I mean, that was one of my reasons I stopped. Is all plastic.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that's how you get your kids to make these decisions as they get older is you teach them, because our kids are smart. We don't give them enough credit sometimes. So I really like what Rahana's doing with teaching her kids, like what is a better choice versus not. But then also, to expand on what Rashmi was saying, I think as your kids get older, again, I think in our culture, we have a tendency to baby our kids and just want to prepare and hand it to them. Well, as they're getting older, involve them in the process of making decisions, of meal planning, of prepping the food. That's how they're going to absorb that information and start living it. And that's also how, they're going to make those habits their own, is getting involved.
Yeah, and then sort of teaching them in terms of snacks, like sort of teaching them like what's a healthy alternative. So, for example, right now, if you did an inventory of the top 3 snacks that your kids eat, and then ask yourself, what is a better or healthier alternative to this? So, for example, if chips or goldfish is one, then how can I change that to something like maybe nuts or chane, chickpeas? Like roasted chickpeas. Roasted chickpeas have so much protein in it, so much fiber in it, and it's better for you, obviously, because it's not fried and it's roasted. So, just making small alternatives. Yes, have your chips. And that brings me to my next point, is balance. Nobody's perfect. You can't expect, to have 3 perfectly well-balanced meals with all the macronutrients and all the serving size and perfect grams of sugar and no grams of sugar and perfect grams of protein. You can't do that. It's not practical, but it is about balance. So try your best to put color on your plate. Teach your kids, get your kids involved. And that brings me to my next slide, which is called Choose My Plate. Now, this was an initiative that was started by former First Lady Michelle Obama. I love her. She's amazing. This is probably one of the highlights of her tenure. And she did a wonderful job trying to bring healthy foods and healthy food choices to our schools. And this is a resource that you can find on the website. It's called choosemyplate.gov. And it's absolutely wonderful because you can visually see and show your kids a plate that has 4 parts and the dairy on the side. And it's easy for them to say, okay, I need to fill my plate with this. And this is my fruits, this is my vegetables, grains, and my protein. And it makes it easy for them. There's so many different recipes. There's so many different alternatives to snacks, to fruits. What do you try? If you can try different things, if something's not working for you, there's so many different ways. Also, there's a lot of activities that you can get from this website to involve your kids. So, making a plate with them, or doing a coloring activity or doing a scavenger hunt in the grocery store. So like they really give cool tips to help moms and parents in general to help their kids understand what making a healthy plate means. You can also download the app on your phone, and even on, I don't know if parents want to do this or not, but if your child is old enough to play on the screen and keep up with things on the phone, because we live in a very, very virtual world right now. And if they're able to do that, let them be in charge, I think, of taking their food and what they did for that day, keeping track of that. So on that app, you can put in like points. So for example, fruits, you can put in, you need 1 point for fruit, 2 points for vegetables, 1 point for protein, and 1 point for grains for one meal. And what they can do is they can challenge themselves and click every time they get those, they can get that point and receive a badge. So it sort of makes it interactive and it puts them in charge. So in addition to getting them in the kitchen to cook with you, getting them, to help you buy groceries, meal prep, these are some other ways that you can get them to choose their plate, literally, and really get them to make the healthier choices.
Yeah, it's whenever we eat sugary foods or whenever we, make bad eating decisions, it's this little reward center that gets lit up, right, with the amount of sugar that we have. And I think that's, this is a very different way of doing it. It's the difference between feeding your child and eating with your child, right? When you sit and you eat with your child, you're educating them, you're bringing them into this world of how do you create nutrition for yourself? How do you have a well-balanced meal? And I think that's absolutely brilliant, Rashmi. Thank you. We're going to move it to Sofia now. So, Sofia, this is a great chart that we talked about, and we also, and you're going to hit this point home about fiber and how much fiber and why it's so important. But let's talk about the daily calorie intake. Whenever we look at these nutritional facts, everything is based on a 2,000 calorie diet.
Exactly.
But if you're younger or if you're underweight or if you're not at the right height, it's a flat thing that is like, does everybody actually need 2,000 calories to survive? I think that's something that we also need to take into consideration. So, talk to us a little bit about how you look at, calorie variation through age group and nutrition as it relates.
Yeah, so I really like this because it's a little bit more concrete because, I'm very type A, and for those type A moms out there, this might be a good guide. I got it from the Healthy Children,
I can relate, Sophia.
healthychildren.org website. That is a really great place to find lots of resources. But anyways, I really like this because it has breakdown of different ages, what the activity level of that person is, and then based on that, what their calorie need is for the day. So right now, I know my child's 2, doesn't matter about his activity level. He doesn't sit down, probably like most 2-year-olds, but he's gonna need 1,000 calories. And then I see how that's gonna change, as he gets older. So this is really good, and I thought a lot of people would appreciate this. We can go
to know that they don't need 2,000 like us. Like you don't need to freak out if your kid didn't eat a meal.
Yeah, all the labels are going to say based on a 2,000 calorie diet.
I think this is one of my favorite slides, I think, out of the entire presentation, just because it really breaks it down in terms of what you need to eat, what you need to give your child based on their calorie intake.
Well, before we get into this slide, right, I want to make sure that everybody, and this is going to be like a little bit more advanced, right? So guys, don't, like, everyone that's listening, your mind should not explode, right? But if you are a younger person that doesn't need 2,000 calories and, the Nutella is based on a 2,000 calorie diet, well, you're not eating 46% of saturated fat for the day. You're actually eating 73%.
Yeah.
And so, it's
all
really
about
important.
Perspective, right?
And it's a range. And so, if your body is, if you're, a shorter stature or a younger person or a much older person, that is a moving target. That 2,000 calorie number is a moving target. And that 46% saturated fat is probably going to be higher than what you actually need as well. So we also need to be very thoughtful from that standpoint. But yeah, this is a great slide too, where we talk about the food groups and the amount of serving. So let's get into that, Sophia.
So this graph shows kind of the same thing as the the MyPlate, but once you look at that first chart and then you know how many calories a day you should be consuming based on age or your child's age, etc., you can use this to look at the quantity of each food group. So my 2-year-old needs the 1,000 calories a day. So 1 cup of that 1,000 calories should be fruit. 1 cup should be vegetables, etc. So this is another way to really look at it and appreciate the information.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love it. Let's go to the next slide. I think that, one thing that Sophia and I have in common is that we love eating really late at night, and we make really poor decisions when we eat really late at night, because we're not trying to cook at like 10:30 p.m. when everyone's finally asleep and we get our munchies. And so, we end up eating really highly processed foods. And sometimes when we're not in the mood to cook for our children, we say, let's just get a Happy Meal. And, that's probably the most processed of processed foods that we can imagine, right? So let's find out and uncover a little bit about what's minimally processed versus very heavily processed foods.
So processed food just has like a bad connotation, but there's really a big range. So like even like the fresh spinach that we have that's bagged and ready to eat, or like roasted nuts that's in a bag ready to go, that's technically been processed, right? Because it's not just natural off the tree. So that's minimally. The next is like our canned vegetables, frozen fruits and vegetables, stuff like that. It's picked at peak and then processed to lock in the nutrition. So the minimally processed and the processed at peak foods are kind of like green go-to foods. Those are the good ones that you want to incorporate in your diet and you don't have to feel guilty about. The ones that you kind of have to be a little bit more conscientious of is the stuff like pasta sauces, salad dressing, stuff like that. The things with the added sugars, the dyes, things to add flavor, preserve it on the shelf, stuff like that. And then,
yeah, when you read the ingredients of anything that you're eating, if it's more than what that ingredient is, it's probably more processed, right? And we can also assume that the more processed it is, the more sugars, the more salt, the more preservative.
Yeah.
Say it again, Rahana.
No Go-Gurt.
No, exactly. So
Seriously,
the goldfish, the pretzels, the things that we're putting in our kids' bags to give them to go snack-wise, those are heavily processed foods. So we have to be really careful about those and how much we in our family and our children are eating that. And then the most heavily processed stuff is like pre-made meals, frozen pizzas, microwavable dinners. And so we really definitely just
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
College freshman year.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
All of our
they have the sugar, salt, and fat, and they go ding, 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 ding,
well, I think it was just when I think about all of our freshman 15, because I think all of us got our freshman 15. Rahana didn't, because Rahana's like the skinniest human being in the world. But like, I think all of us kind of faced that, and it was because we were in this storm of a high stress environment, and we needed to calm ourselves down, and our adrenaline is going, right. So I don't think people take that into consideration either. Whenever you're in this high stress environment,
night.
Emotional stress.
You at 3 a.m.
Stress
yeah,
eating.
exactly,
And
you're not
at the library,
right. You're you're like, hey, when is Penland going to close? And it's like, it's going to close at midnight. So let's go to Penland or whatever. Right?
Meals worth. I paid money.
Yeah. And you're not going to let meals go because we're South Asian and we're very conscious like that. So let's go to the next slide. Rashmi, let's go to the next slide. And I think that's the other thing is when we are eating food, how is that food also being processed within our body? I want us to take this message home. This is probably one of the most important slides. It's something that I learned so much about is the balance between sugar and fiber. And if it's not a 1-to-1 ratio, then the ratios are completely off, and you're going to be more likely to get diabetes later on, or even earlier on in your life. Rahana was, I don't know if I can say this or not, but Rahana was facing gestational diabetes, right? And so and she's a doctor, guys. She's a doctor, and so
Doctors can't get gestational diabetes.
Gestational diabetes actually taught me more than medical school about nutrition, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Being a patient, having to do your sugar 4 times a day and checking it and not being under control. And then the doctor was like, well, do diet, and then, or we have to go to insulin. I'm like, I'm not doing any more pokes, So I learned fairly quickly, my chai is still lactose turned into, glucose. So my sugar was spiking. I was like, okay, what do I do with that? I cut the chai in half. And then literally I had to have 2 or 3 stalks of celery with my chai or afterwards because it had fiber in it. And I learned that if I just ate 2 or 3 stalks of celery with my chai or my bread, it flattened the curve for my glucose. Okay,
Yeah.
Gestational diabetes is a little different from regular diabetes, but still it's the same process, same pathophysiology.
It's short term versus long term, and how what is it called, the glycogen cycle, fast burning versus slow burning, anyway. But I think that's really important. That's like kind of the shortcut, right? If your fiber ratio is off, then you're going to be at risk. So Sophia, why don't you talk to us and tell us what that formula looks like? And we'll come back and we'll talk about this, because in healthcare, whether you're a healthcare professional or you're not, or some of our doctors, nurses, things like that, they don't get any nutritional training. And all these chronic diseases, all these illnesses that we face throughout our lives, cardiac, health, whatever it might be, right? Mental, things of that sort, it all stems from nutrition. And if our healthcare professionals aren't getting nutritional training, then it's up to us, and we have to take on that part of our healthcare ourselves. So, Sophia, let's get into our fiber needs and how we can calculate that, and then we'll go from there.
Perfect. Especially
and we have about 4 or 5 minutes left of the show, so
no pressure. So I work with kids exclusively. So I talk to moms a lot about fiber, and most of the time it's in the context of constipation. But fiber is not just important for constipation. It's very important to regulate our sugar levels. There's a strong correlation between lack of fiber and insulin resistance, which is what causes diabetes. So how much fiber does your kid need? The easy formula is the age of the child in years plus 5 to 10. And that equals the number of grams of fiber they need a day. The maximum will be 25 grams. So my 2-year-old needs 7 to 12 grams of fiber a day. Good foods, like better choices of foods, are going to have at least 3 grams of fiber per serving. Okay. And so these are the foods that, obviously fruits, vegetables, brown rice, oatmeal, but not instant oatmeal. It has to be like steel cut. Yeah. And then the beans, seeds, and nuts. So that's where we're looking for.
Don't buy the Quaker oats. Don't buy that.
Yeah.
Instant.
Let her finish. Let's go. Sophia, keep going, please. Everyone's like, steel cut. Steel cut.
You said 4 minutes.
Yeah, we're trying to hurry it up.
Yes.
We can go to the next slide, I think.
Yeah, we can go to the next slide. So that's the formula, right? Max 25 grams of fiber per day, right? But take your age and then add 10 to it, right? And you don't want to go about it. But if you're 25, is that correct? So if you go to 25, hold on, let's go back to that.
An adult.
Just everyone get to 25. And if you're a kid, then you don't have to get to 25. But if you're having constipation problems, get closer to 25. Why not?
Just talk to your doctor. How about that?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't have healthcare insurance.
Yeah, even though we don't know much about nutrition, yeah, talk to us.
This is gonna be in the resources, no problem.
Yes.
Okay, good. So let's get into go-to recipes. I know that as mothers, you guys try to make some substitutions, and we have 2 minutes to talk about this. So let's talk about this, and then I have a few questions for you guys specifically, and then we'll wrap it up. So I think, Rashmi, you want to talk about healthy alternatives and some go-to recipes, correct?
Yeah, sure. So for snacks and things like that, you want to make small changes and small healthy swaps. So in my house, we have like a 2-to-1 rule. So kids are required, if they're going to eat 3 snacks, at least 2 of them have to be a healthy snack, and then 1 snack of their choice. My little one calls it a pantry snack. So we know she wants her junk, but she's required to eat at least 2 of her healthy snacks before she can get that. Another alternative is maximizing the veggie intake. Some of us have, at least for me as a mom, had that issue early on where getting veggies in was a little hard, or we were just too busy. We were just always on the go and I needed something quick. So what I did was I made like little veggie roti rolls. What I would do is just take all the veggies I can find. And when I mean veggies, I got creative. I would add apples, chickpeas, you name it, spinach, broccoli, green beans, anything and everything that you wanted, fruits even. And it would make it a little bit sweet, flax seeds, and just blend those veggies, steam them, blend them, add all the spices, including the turmeric, the cinnamon, all of my favorite spices that I talked about earlier, add them, put them and knit the dough with that little puree. And then make the roti the way you normally do, put a little bit of ghee or clarified butter, roll it up, and you're ready to go. So like things like that. And then zucchini is another favorite treat of mine, like that I like to sneak in anything and anywhere I can. You can put it in smoothies, you can put it in baked goods. White beans is also another good one, has tons of fiber, lots of good protein. You could put it in fruits, you could put it in your veggie smoothies, fruit and veggie smoothies, and it's very creamy and delicious. So like when you're making those pasta sauces, you can start with like the peeled canned tomatoes and add some of these, zucchinis, and you can add some of these fresh veggies, just shred them really small. And, the kids don't even notice that they're there.
Yeah. It all takes pre-planning. The whole point is planning. These are not hard to do. They just take a little planning. And so for our breakfast, when I was scolded or told by the teacher that you need to cut down on the sugar, I was like, okay. So we would do egg omelets, and then he's older, but I took him and underestimated him. He's like, I want bell pepper in there. I was like, really? And I thought that's an adulty thing, but then he loves his bell pepper. And so banana strawberry smoothies, oatmeal with honey and fruit, if you can do it. And you know what? Honestly, it's not going to be a great day every day. No one is saying that. I take out that pancake mix. It's okay with honey sometimes, or hash browns if I have to do it. But all the other times, as long as you're doing things consciously, as long as
for lunch.
Right.
Yeah, then, I think like as parents, right, we always think about how we're going to play coach, and it's like coaching a soccer team, and then you end up just playing goalie the whole time, right? I mean, this is kind of the adjustment that we make. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back because I think that this is probably the most fun and entertaining section, is coming back and just talking about stories about parenting, some of the decisions that we make, and stay tuned with us. We'll be right back with Mind Over Music. This is episode 6, where we talk a little bit about childhood nutrition. Stick with us. Okay. Hey guys.
So is this part being recorded too?
This part is also being recorded, so everyone on Facebook Live we can continue the conversation on Facebook Live. I just had to take a radio break because it's been an hour, and we usually do 2 to 3
people have to listen to. Not joking.
And we didn't have a song break, so maybe like when we come back, we can play like maybe a minute of a song, and then it breaks up the monotony a little bit, and we'll do that. So what's a good song that you guys wanna play? That we can play for everybody.
Oh, there's so many.
Food related?
Yeah, do food related.
I think I sent you the list.
I always tell Rahana we should play chocolate lime juice, and she's like, "No, that has nothing to do with chocolate or lime juice."
Yeah, that song.
Sorry.
What song? Rashmi, tell me.
No, that song.
I sent you a couple of a list, Ali.
You sent me a list? I don't even know where my photos are. Rahana, you're not reading the chats. Are you reading the chats?
No, not anymore.
Yeah.
I kind of stopped too, Ali.
No, I should have, but it's okay. No, there was this duplicate song by Shah Rukh Khan, and he's like,
Mere mehbooba mere sanam.
the other one, the one where he's in the kitchen, dal gal gayi.
There's one batata vada. There's another one from
Jadna.
मैं तो रास्ते से जा रहा था भेलपुरी का आलू चाट.
Waji wa.
रास्ते से जा रहा था. Do that one.
मैं तो रास्ते से जा रहा था.
Ice cream खा रहा था. तुझको मिर्ची लगी तो. This is live, right? And recorded to make Peru.
Rihanna getting real comfortable, Rihanna.
I have no shame in the game. It's okay.
It's all good.
All right. I can't see the gallery, but yeah. Well, today,
Was this a lunch idea yours, Sophia, or was that Rihanna?
fine.
Fried rice? Who does that? You guys, who did it? Rihanna?
I do that. Leftover in the morning
The leftover rice with the, yeah, okay.
with salt and
Turmeric.
honey. It just, I mean, I think all parents would love to do everything that's written on this. It's just when you all
We
this
don't do everything that's written on this, right? Like it's
when you do all the work and the kid rejects it, I'm like, oh my god,
it's
Thank you
very
so much.
all
heartening.
this roti.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
You know, I get PTSD when they reject like something where I work like all day. I'm like, dude,
Choosing
you're
to
getting
pursue
hash
this, yeah.
browns.
8 to 10, yes. Oh, thank you.
It is-
This
it
means
is
so much
hard.
to me. And what is your name?
It's heartening, but you do what you can. You win some, you lose some, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a trend that matters. I think everybody needs to know that every day is not
Thank you so
gonna be
much.
a
Thank you.
winner.
Thank you. That means so much.
So-
Thank you for calling. Okay.
Oh, Vajiva is the song.
All right. Are you ready to go back in?
How about that
Look at
Vajiva
this
song?
That was
slide.
Parveen.
We're done with
That was
this slide.
That was a lady named Parveen, and she just like, oh, thank you for making the switch. Very thoughtful. Very thoughtful, huh?
Switch
Okay.
for what?
The bullet point. Whoever did that.
I did that.
Oh, thank you, Rashmi.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Y'all are so weird.
If you're tired of reading about other people,
All right, we are back with episode 6, season 2 of Mind Over Music. I'm your host, Shan Molodina, here with my 3 beautiful, amazing, brilliant guests. They're mothers, they're healthcare workers, they're the best of the best, and I'm so happy to have them on the show tonight. Everybody, welcome back, Dr. Rahana Sunesara.
Hello.
Hello. Oh man, I don't know what's going on over here. Oh, I don't think it connected. So weird. All right. Anyway, so what? All right, Rahana, try it again.
Technical difficulties?
Yeah, this is a technical difficulty. It's really weird. I don't know what's going on.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Okay, yeah. So yeah,
Awesome.
so Rahana, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. CEO, founder of, of Vital Health Telehealthcare, Rashmi Momin. Rashmi, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And Sofia Poonawala, the mother of DHD films and nurse practitioner galore. Here we go. Thank you for being on the show, Sos.
Thank you.
You know, I remember today, only today I remember, I was like, oh, I was like, what was my nickname for you in college? It was Sofs. I would always call you Sofs. I don't know if you remember that or not. And I didn't call you Sophia. Anyway, Sofs. Anyway, so here we go. We're back into it, and we're going to get into Mythbusters. I think this is the most exciting, fun part of the show. And the reason why it's fun is because people love hearing disaster stories about how you guys try to be good mothers and then it adjusts and it's like, I couldn't do that. Like, it just wouldn't work. So let's get into some of these myth busting. So I love hearing from Rahana. I want to get into Elon's story about how you would hype him up on sugar and send him to school and how he got in trouble. But before we do that, tied into this first Mythbuster, I've heard that every toddler needs 3 full meals a day. You have to make sure your toddler eats well, and is always completely full. Every toddler needs 3 meals a day. What do you think?
No, they live on air. I swear, they live on air. They can survive. What we're saying is, as moms, we shouldn't worry. I mean, I'm being a hypocrite, but we shouldn't worry if they don't eat their 3 full meals a day. It's fine. They're gonna survive. They will grow as long as they're not falling off their curve, their growth curve. If they're growing taller, it's gonna be okay. If they miss breakfast, it's okay. You go to the next meal. You don't need to go into some anxiety mode. And so that's how my second child is. He's like 10 percentile, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's never gonna grow. But you know, it is what it is. It's okay.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Somebody's got to be 10th percentile. You know what I mean? Like somebody.
Put it into
Genetics too, Rahana.
have to remember this. And I think as a mom, it's really hard because you're just thinking, oh, my kid's not eating. They have so much rapid growth in that first year of life. So they're eating a lot and it's really easy. Like, it's like almost like everything you give them, they take, and it's awesome. And then they come into this toddler mode, after a year, then that 2-year age. And then they start having their preferences and become picky and stuff like that. So a couple things. Your toddler is moving more, but their growth is not as fast as that first year. So they're just not going to eat those 3 full meals a day a lot of the time. And that's okay. You don't have to feel bad about that. And so you give them, this is what it is. And if they eat it, great. And if they don't, hey, we're going to try again next meal. No problem. And
go ahead.
no, I was just saying, and then also a lot of times it's like, you bust your butt and you make this, plate of food for them, and it took time, and you're like, trying to do 10 other things. And then they're like, oh, we don't like it. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
You just liked it yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah.
5 minutes ago they liked it.
It
5
changes,
minutes.
for sure. Yeah, as a mom, that was my issue too. Like, I would, spend so much time, like, and then, talking to other moms, even Pinterest, to like look up ideas for like picky eaters, trying to make this delicious plate, that needs to be on Instagram, but they wouldn't eat it. And it drove me nuts. But I learned that, it's not about what they eat that meal or even that day. Sometimes it's looking at the whole week. If you think they've eaten well balanced meal for the week, that's really all that you can sort of put out there for them. We all have our bad days. We all have our good days. And as moms, just do your best, really. Keep it simple, keep it easy, and don't stress, don't fret. It took me 2 kids to learn that. So the first one really drove me nuts.
Yeah, my kid had nuggets today because he rejected my homemade chicken and roti. So he went some.
And you don't have to be a good cook because they don't know the difference. All right, so
Oh,
choosing foods.
Oh boy, but they do.
They do, yeah. They have their preferences. Choosing foods that are gluten-free will help you eat healthier. Talk to me about that, Rahana.
Oh, that's so popular and trendy. It must be good for me. But honestly, gluten-free foods is a prescription. Okay, it's not a fad. For people who have celiac disease, where they have an inflammatory condition where the gluten is causing them inflammation in their body and their stomach hurts or they feel bad and they're vomiting, that's the right prescription. But if you're just, normal Joe and Jane walking down in Whole Foods, you should not be looking for gluten-free. It's okay. You can have normal foods, fresh foods. That's all you need to care about. Fresh foods, vegetables, unprocessed, because you will lose minerals and vitamins if you continue to go after this fad. Gluten-free is a prescription, in my opinion. You should not be eating it if it's not prescribed to you, unless it really does make you feel better.
Yeah, unless you have sensitivity to gluten and you have celiac disease, which is you're pretty much adverse to the protein, the gluten protein, and your stomach is having an adverse reaction. I don't know if it's actually that important, right? You're right. A lot of these fads, and we're going to get into the need to eat meat regularly, right? But a lot of these fads, because they're so imbalanced, and Rashmi talked about the MyPlate, and she talked about having access to that app and looking at your plate and dissecting it into 4 different quadrants, right? And you see that and you're like, okay, well, the South Beach diet tells me I need to eat nothing but protein and avoid carbs altogether and all that stuff. Well, you're right, Rahana, like you're going to be, nutrient deficient in one way or the other because you're stacking up so much on one side of that plate. So let's talk about the need to eat meat protein regularly.
So I'm really go ahead. So I'm really passionate about like the looking at and dissecting and analyzing how much meat we consume. Previously, in like 100 years ago, where we didn't have good refrigeration and so forth, and we didn't have mass production of meat, we didn't have meat every day. Friday was Gosh Day or Chicken Day. That was the day. This was a luxury. Meat was a luxury. Now it's become a necessity. And it is something that we are not consciously consuming. And it is causing more and more issues. Red meat associated with cancer, colon cancer. It's obvious. And meat is processed. especially the ones that we don't go out there and grab the chicken and so forth. It's very processed, and so you need to monitor and see how much meat are you consuming, a food diary, a food log, because you won't remember what you had on Wednesday. Right? Well, let's just pick up some nuggets or some fried chicken or whatever. But did you know that you just had a burger yesterday, and then day before you had gosh, then day before you had biryani because we had a dalit, and then we had leftover? Like, oh, we had kushari. It never ends. We are using meat, and this is, and whenever we go out to eat, I'm never gonna order a salad from a restaurant. I order meat. It's just like I don't feel full.
I mean, I'm not going to spend $15 on a meal that's a vegetarian meal, right? I think that's the other thing too. Yeah, I got to have some meat on it.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Sophia, let's talk about natural juices. Are natural juices healthy and can be given regularly? Because that's what I'm hearing.
So they're definitely okay to have in moderation and have as a treat, but it's not something that you should have regularly. So it's not like, oh, you gotta go fresh squeeze your orange juice and give it to your kid every day. We kind of touched on this before. How many oranges does it take to make that glass of orange juice? 5, 10, depending how big your glass is. So are you physically going to eat, more than one orange for a snack or a meal? No way. So it's just not practical. Also, we said before too, like when you eat or the fruit or the vegetable, it's got the whole nutrient packet in it, right? It's got the natural sugars, but it's offset by, the fiber, and then you've got the vitamins and minerals and everything that comes with it. So I would say just avoid juices, use it as an occasional treat here and there. That's totally fine. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no more than 4 ounces of juice a day for young kids. So
you can dilute it. Water, there's no shame. There's no shame in diluting juices and sports drinks.
I'd do it.
You know what? I see a lot of parents that are like, oh, my kid doesn't like water. And, I feel like the kid ends up getting a lot of juice anyways because they're diluting. So again, it's that consciousness. You do what works, but you make sure that, if you're diluting juice that, or water, to make them drink more water, that's fine. But, you got to make sure it's not more than that 4 ounces of juice a day. And, like for the older kids, like Crystal Light is a good alternative, gives flavor, but it doesn't have that sugar of the juice and stuff. So
yeah, as an adult, I dilute my juices. I try to stay as close to that 4 ounces. I don't drink juice every day by any means, but like, whenever I do have something, like I always dilute it because it's too sugary. And I think when it's packaged in a certain way, we almost in our mind say we have to consume it the way that it's packaged. No, you don't. If it says poison, don't eat it, right? I mean, and you can dilute it and it's less poisonous, and that's fine, right?
Yeah,
your body will tolerate it, right? Let's talk about dairy products. I'm hearing dairy products are fattening and unhealthy. I think cheese, all that stuff. I think they are pretty fatty and unhealthy. But talk to us about dairy products.
Okay, so I think the dairy products is a very personal thing. Okay, there's some families that choose to be vegan. There's some that their kids love milk and that's all they want to drink, and so we just have to be conscientious again. Milk, there's some kids that love milk and some that hate it, and I always tell my families that milk is a good source of protein, fat, calcium, and vitamin D. Okay, but if your child is eating a good, well-rounded diet and you're getting other sources of foods with those things in it, then you don't have to do the milk and the dairy and stuff like that.
And you don't need to give your child a glass of milk with every meal. If they're gaining weight, don't. Water, it's enough, because once you cut that milk and if they were overweight and they're still drinking half a glass every day, it's okay. Water is good enough.
Yeah, I totally agree. Rashmi, talk to us a little about type 2 diabetes. The myth here is only adults get type 2 diabetes.
So not true. Absolutely not true. In fact, actually 3,400 to 4,000 children every year are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And it really does relate to the nutrition and, you know, the things that we put in front of them and what they're eating. So definitely not something that is only strictly related to adults. It does start with children. And in fact, I think I'm really interested in knowing what those numbers will look like once this pandemic goes over, because, you know, kids have been learning online. They haven't been getting their movement that they normally get when they're in school, the home cooked meals that they're eating or snacking. I mean, I know my kids, I mean, I feel like the pantry door is a revolving door. It's every minute or chance that they get, they're in the pantry. So I feel like that is definitely going to play a big part into those numbers in the future. So I'm really curious as to see what that's going to look like for kids here in the next 4 to 5 years.
Newsflash, it's not going to look good. It's
Yeah.
it's going to be really bad.
It's going to go up. We know that.
It's through the roof. It's through the roof. And then finally, this last Mythbuster, and then we'll exit out of the presentation and get back to us four. Actually, you can do that now since I know what the last question is. You know, Rashmi, I always hear about how like, you know, if it's organic, it's good. Like it's ubiquitous, right? If as long as it's organic, you know, there's, you know, you can't touch it. You know, it's the greatest thing for you. Let's talk about that myth.
So again, I think there's you need to understand what the purpose of being organic is. Like organic produce, there's a list of, you know, dirty, what is it, 12 or 7, something like that you can follow that is good for you, you know, that you should buy organic. Things like spinach, you know, strawberries, things like that are okay to buy organic. But then if you're talking about, for example, Auntie Anne's mac and cheese that comes in that prepackaged stuff, it's organic, but really, is it good?
Seriously.
So with that powdered sugar, yeah, it is powdered sugar. Really, is it? Is it even cheese? And again, in moderation. There are parents that are probably eating this right now, and we're talking about it and feeling super guilty. This is not to mom shame, parent shame. It really is about moderation. So yes, if you're eating that all the time, then it's not really a question about being organic or non-organic. It's about question of, is it highly processed and is it necessary? And are you eating it in moderation?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to take this moment to thank you guys so much for your time. I'm going to have one last question for you guys before we wrap this up. And that is, you know, we talked a little bit about the guilt that it, you know, and the shame that comes with being a mother or father, but, you know, being like the head of nutrition, right, at the house and trying to make healthy decisions with limited time, with limited resources, and going out of your mind. I mean, it is, you have no personal time to yourself. When you're a parent, that's like the hardest job in the world. And then you have to balance everything else on top of that. Let's talk a little bit about helicopter parenting. I think that was a really important part of our discussion yesterday as we were preparing for this show today. And it was, you know, we used to see so many kids. We used to be out there. We used to be walking to school and we used to play outside in the yard and with our neighbors and all that stuff. And with the pandemic hitting, we can't really play with our neighbors. But, you know, if you see a kid walking to school, you want to call Child Protective Services on that parent saying, what is this parent? Why is this kid walking to school? You know, and we don't just, you know, our children don't get that movement and then they're stuck to their screens. And then we say, oh, this is bad for them. This is bad for their brain, their eyes, so much information coming to them. There's childhood obesity, there's quality of life and depression that they're going through. And on top of all of that, we're helicoptering them and we're micromanaging them. We're driving, you know, parents are driving themselves crazy and then they're driving their kids crazy and they just don't know how to get out of that holding pattern. So, you know, I think before we get into this, you know, this is not anything that has to do with shame. This is all about, this is a normal part of being a parent. And this is just what happens. And so, you know, let's talk about how we all kind of helicopter parent, how, you know, there's some of the tendencies, what we're trying to do, where we want to move it forward, and, you know, just to build a community here. And, you know, hopefully this is not the last series that we do. I mean, Rahana is really the one that brought us all together. And Rahana, I hope that you keep on doing that and you bring, you know, fun, cool, unique topics, guests, whoever you want. You know, it's on you guys, you know, and this is a platform. Yeah, this is a platform for us. It's a platform for our community. So let's talk a little bit about helicopter parenting real quick and lessons learned and kind of where you want to take it moving forward. So, you know, Rashmi, you ended the last one, so I'll start with you and we'll go to Sofia and then Rahana.
Sure. So I think, we had a really fruitful conversation yesterday with respect to this, as Ali said. And I think it's very different it's a different world that we're living in. And as parents, I think me growing up versus the way my kids are growing up, yes, I think my parents were not as knowledgeable about certain things. We are, but I think the knowledge has come with the fear, and it's sort of a give and take, and that fear is instilled in us as parents because we know so much. We fear this, we fear that, and then we sort of in turn subconsciously instill that fear in our kids. So like hearing a story about a little girl or a little boy, being snatched from their front yard, like I don't know if you guys have heard that, but I've seen that, I've read about it, and it just like I cringe, and it makes me really nervous when I hear those things. So as a mom, I am trying to like protect my kids and not do that. And so I want to be there every second, every minute, watching over them, making sure that, oh, to make sure you don't fall, oh, don't jump, oh, don't do this. And then I have to step back and I have to like remind myself that they are kids. They are going to make mistakes. They're going to fall. They're going to do what they're going to do. Yes, it is our job to train them to eat healthy, but when they're in college, they're going to pack those, 15 pounds or whatnot. But we give them the tools that they need and then sort of let them go. And I think as a mom, there's that guilt, if they happen to have an accident that was preventable, there's definitely that guilt. And I think every mom can relate to that. But there's also that whole idea that, I did my best. And at the end of the day, I think if every mom can, or dad can realize like, hey, we did our best and sleep with that, I think it should end there. And that's all, I think.
Yeah, I agree. You have a brand new telehealth company that you launched. You're a nurse practitioner. Why don't you tell us about that and where people can reach out to you?
Yay. So Vital Telecare is a healthcare company that offers virtual appointments and online solutions to patients that need affordable, convenient care. We see patients with chronic conditions such as diabetes and high blood pressure, as well as acute illnesses or short-term illnesses like a common cold or a flu. So not only is it fast and convenient, it's affordable, but it's also awesome because you don't really lose the quality. You'll see me.
Yeah. And you're an incredible
VitalTelecare.com.
VitalTelecare.com. And
Yes.
that's the thing is like, to have access to you, and you're so knowledgeable and you're so empathetic and you care. A lot of people, when we were going through this whole Obamacare situation, the one question that everyone was asking is, can I still see my doctor? And so it's really important to find a good healthcare professional that you can connect with. And I can't recommend Rashmi enough. So Vital Healthcare, what is it? VitalHealthcare.com?
Vital Telecare.
Vital Telecare. Okay, good. So, and we'll put that in our notes as well for the show, so everyone can access you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Sophia, tell us a little bit about helicopter parenting and the lessons learned.
Yeah, it's hard, and it's funny. I'm seeing in me and my husband, our dynamic is so different. I'm actually the one that says, yeah, they're going to get hurt, they're going to fall, it's okay, Maz is going to be fine. And Shazad's really like, oh my gosh, like we need to watch him this and that. And it's hard. And he's only 2, so I have a lot to learn in that regard as he continues to grow up. But I remember when I was a kid, one of the best things, the proudest moments I had was when my mom said, yeah, go ahead, no problem, I trust you. And as a teenager, that just blew my mind. And it just made me respect my mom even more. Okay. So I think that's a goal, as your child gets older, to have that relationship where you can both learn to respect each other. And it's hard to let go, and it's hard to let them ride their bike down the sidewalk because the road is right there. But, the how proud they feel doing, meeting their milestones and accomplishing things and being independent. It's really important. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, I mean, as long as you are doing the best you can and your kid is just healthy and happy and loved, that is the best thing you can do for your kid. And that's what matters the most.
I love it. I love it. And sometimes we lose sight of that, but to have an amazing parent, to have, I love your mom. Like, tell her I said young that. And
Yes, please.
yeah, she's incredible. And I think that, these are the moments, right? These are the moments that we use to develop ourselves as well as our families and our children. And so, Rihanna, I want to come to you. Talk to us a little bit about helicopter parenting, lessons learned, and we're all out here trying our best, right?
Oh, this is my funny story about helicopter parenting. So my kids love like popsicles, those plastic long ones. And then I was
I eat them every day.
Yeah. So I give them, it's like here during the summer when they were home and I was going crazy with COVID. So, but then they're like, oh, mama, cut the plastic. So I was with the scissors walking around the backyard. I'm like, wait up. My parents never did this for me. They never cut the plastic off every time I took a bite. Ridiculous. I was like, figure it out. Push this thing up. You can figure out that the ice is gonna go up and you can eat this thing. And it just blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, this is 2020 and I'm doing this micromanaging, helicopter parenting, smothering popsicle session here. What is this? And so I had to consciously step back. I'm like, what am I doing? And so I still make mistakes. I'm still walking around. Hey, so do you need anything? Do you want a pop?
Right.
Do you want an orange? Like, let them tell you they're hungry. Like, let them. And so Anif is different from me. Anif is very hands off. My husband, he's very hands off. He's like, cool, it's all good. I'm like, hey, like I'm just like all the time. And so I know what the problem is, but I can't help it. And so it's my issue. And I think it's a lot of moms' issues. But the popsicle story just blew. I was like, what's wrong with me? But I think a lot of moms do this. Can I open this for you?
Right.
Do you want more? Like, whatever. They'll ask. But I think whatever, but I'm hypocritical. So, hey.
I mean, it is a lot about, and I think that we're moving into a society that's much more empathetic, and we're all like wanting to make sure that we're not a-holes, because we have all the resources, and so along with the resources, we feel a responsibility to do everything that we can for our kids, and sometimes that means that we're smothering, right? And sometimes that means that, hey, I should be able to do more, and I think that also comes through with the South Asian culture. Being a part of the South Asian culture, and we have meritocracy and all these other things that are going through our minds. We're stuck with, hey, if you're not overachieving in every single category, you're not good enough, right? I think that's the other challenge, and I think that we need to address that and take that bull by the horns, because what's happening is, along the byproduct, right? Just like the byproduct of obesity is, cardiovascular cancer, liver disease, things of that sort. The byproduct of helicopter parenting being so stressful and meritocratic is mental breakdown, is mental issues, right? And
with parenthood, Ali, I'll be honest with you, is not overachieving. It's surviving.
but
keep your head above water and you're good. The kid is happy, healthy, and safe. Yeah. That's good enough. And honestly, good enough is not the best. I don't like that term, but in parenting, sometimes it's good and it's okay.
Agreed. I think that a lot of times, all too often, in every aspect of our lives, we let perfection get in the way of good. And when you're trying to get perfect, you'll never get there. It's as long as it's good. Who knows? Like Rashmi said, they can go to college and get in some really big trouble, and who cares? You know what I mean? Like, everything that you did for 15 years or 18 years didn't make any sense, right? So, we raise them the right way, and we do everything that we possibly can. We came out okay, and our parents didn't make the best decisions all the time, right? And we were resilient, and it worked out. So. I want to thank you three so much for being on the show tonight. I hope we can do it again. I think everybody enjoyed it. It was some good content, and I love you guys. This is so much fun, and I hope that we continue doing these programs.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, everybody, and stay tuned for our next show. It's called The Night Owls, and I'm going to be hosting that show as well. Tonight we're talking about The Queen's Gambit, which is an amazing show that's on Netflix, and we're going to be talking about chess and how we strategically move through our life. So stick with us. We'll be right back. Hi.
Hi. That took
Nope.
an hour and a half.
How come it's not?